Pushing Back the Shadows, support and awareness for mental health. Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast. My name's Alex Davis. I'm the founder of Pushing Back the Shadows and the main author behind the blog. Now today I wanted to look a little bit at taking control, or rather taking back control. You see, when you struggle with mental illness, whether that's depression, anxiety, bipolar, a lot of the time it can feel as though your life is controlled by your mental illness. So it's something that can be quite difficult to actually turn around and say, do you know what? No, I'm not happy with the way my life is going at the moment. I'm not happy that my mental health condition is ruling my life. So taking back control is something that a lot of us want to do at some point or another. And realistically, it can be very difficult to do, can't it? And you get into not necessarily a habit, but you get used to it. You get used to the fact that your mental health is dominating your life. You know, you sink into all these different routines and different, like an awareness of the different triggers. Like, for example, oh, I can't go to the shop because my anxiety is going to go through the roof. I can't leave the flat or the house or whatever. And realistically, it becomes very easy to get caught in that cycle. To be sat there saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that because of this, because of that, because of the other. You might recognise it more with anxiety or potentially depression as well. I'll be honest, bipolar is something I'm not too familiar with, but I think you will recognise it a lot with that as well. But so today I'm going to look at, as I said, taking back that control. Turning around to your depression, your anxiety, and saying, do you know what? No, you take the back seat, I'm going to do the driving. Now, here's your little disclaimer. It is a lot easier said than done. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, this is how it goes, this is what you can try, but it's a lot harder for you guys to implement it. And believe me when I say that, I've tried to implement it myself and it's not always easy. It's an ongoing process. So this is not going to be the miraculous wonder cure that will suddenly let you take complete control. This is a work in progress. And that's the important kind of key point that I want you to understand and take away from this. It's not a cure. It is a work in progress that you have to keep working at. Let's dive in. So, effectively what triggered this thought in my head was Cheryl, our editor. She's been off sick for a bit. I mean, she still does the editing for us, kind of, because that's her job on the side, if you like. But normally she works for the same company that I used to work for, on the phones, doing the banking, that sort of thing. And she's been off sick for a while now due to her mental health, her depression, her anxiety. Now, if you go over to the website, www.pushingbacktheshadows.com, you'll find in her editor's corner, she started to kind of talk about that a little in the post, First Day Fears. She talks about how she's prepared herself for returning to work. So that's definitely something that you can check out if you want to find a little bit more information. But so this morning, I dropped our 3-year-old off at nursery, and when I got back, Cheryl was just getting ready, and she said that she was a bit anxious about going in, and so I offered to drive her in, and it just set me thinking as I was driving back from where she works. How do we take back control? Because we've had a few discussions, Cheryl and I, over the past couple of days, where she said, you know what, I'm not ready to go back. And I know I'm not ready, but realistically I've got to. I need to go back, otherwise I'm never going to go back. And it struck me about how determined she is not to let her mental health stop her from doing what she feels that she needs to do. So that really is the basis of this podcast. That's really where I'm coming from. And it's looking at, as I say, turning around and saying, no, I'm going to do the driving. Those of you who are Dexter fans will have heard me refer to my depression and anxiety as my dark passenger, which is very much a Dexter reference. Somebody even commented on that the other day. But so it's all about making that mental health struggle a passenger, not the driver. So let's have a look at the few tips that I've got for you as to how you can take back control from your mental health.
You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows.
Okay, so step one in regaining control of your life, and this is possibly the most important one that there is. Make the decision. Okay, make the decision. Now, I often joke that I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not so sure. And we can laugh at that kind of thing, but realistically with mental health, especially things like anxiety, it can paralyze you. You can become very indecisive. And more often than not, I've sat there and I've said, you know what, I don't know. I'm not so sure. So realistically, if you want to take back control of your life, you have to decide that that is what you are going to do. If you kind of sit there to one side and you say, it'd be nice if I could, or if you say, maybe, maybe not, I'm not so sure, I don't know, then it's not going to happen. It will not happen. You have to make the conscious decision that you are going to take control back. And as I've said before, it's a lot easier said than done. It really is, because your anxiety will be telling you that you don't think you can do it. What if you fail? What if? Your depression will be saying, oh, why bother? You're never going to be able to do it. What's the point? But realistically, nobody can do that for you. If you want to take control of your life, you have to do it yourself. I can't do it for you. Cheryl, when she does her editor's corner, she can't do it for you. Your friends, your family, anybody else that you know, they cannot do it for you. Now, you may be sitting there going, but Alex, my doctor's telling me that I have to go down this treatment path. My therapist is telling me that I need to be doing this. I've got other people who are telling me, like my employer is saying that you have to do this or else. Is that not doing it for me? Well, realistically, no. They can put consequences into place. Like your doctor can say, you know, you have to attend therapy or you go off in the waiting list. Or your employer can say, well, you need to be getting back into the swing of things. Otherwise, realistically, we're going to have to let you go. But that's not making the decision for you. In fact, that's not making the decision to get better at all. That decision lies solely with you. Because if you don't decide that you're going to kind of pick yourself up, pick up the pieces, and try and move on, try and take control back, then those things are going to happen. And they're consequences of your inaction. And we did talk back in episode 19 about inaction and what the consequences of that can be. So realistically, you have to make the decision. And that's the first thing you've got to do. You've got to sit there and say, do you know what? I am going to get better. So if you're somebody who's kind of stuck in that rut and you're listening to these podcasts so that you can get some encouragement, some inspiration, something else along those lines, then why not say that with me? You say, you put your name in, I'm going to take control. So I, Alex Davis, am going to take control. But how do we do it? It's easy enough to say we're going to take control, but how do we take control? We've made the decision. The next thing we need to recognize is that it's not going to happen overnight. And believe me, it won't. It's a long-term process. I said earlier that it's not going to be kind of an easy, quick fix. It's going to be very much a work in progress. And so we have to recognize that it's going to be done over a long period of time. And maybe it'll be done little by little, step by step. It's easy to think and imagine where we want to be. It's not so easy for us to see how to get there. One thing that Cheryl and I often say about the teenager, her son, is that a lot of the time he sees where he wants to be and he sees where he is now, but he doesn't necessarily factor in the bits in the middle. Doesn't necessarily envisage the journey, how that's going to play out, and all sorts of things along those lines. So it can be quite difficult, especially if you're that kind of person, to see how you're going to get there. But realistically, it has to be little by little, step by step. Now, if you're somebody who takes big steps and you're perfectly comfortable with that, then fine, take big steps. If you're not, that's okay. You take little steps, little by little. However you step, however you cope, that's how you've got to go. It's important at this point to remember not to measure your progress against anybody else's. Your progress is exactly what it says on the tin. It's your progress. You can't compare it to my progress, you can't compare it to Cheryl's, you can't compare it to anybody else's progress, because realistically we might do things different. We might cope with things differently to you. And so it's very important to remember that you can't say, oh, I'm not doing well, I'm not doing great, because look at them, they started later and they're doing so much better. They might not have been in depression as deeply as you. They might not be able to cope with things in the same way that you do. So don't compare your progress to anybody else's. Step 3, effectively, is being honest and being open. And that's not just being honest with other people, that's also being honest with yourself. Recognize when there are things that you can't do. Recognize when there are things that you need putting into place before you can cope. And do you know what? Realistically, there's no shame in that. I'm sure Cheryl will tell you later on when she writes up how her return to work has gone. She will tell you that the night before she was due to be going into work at about 8 o'clock the following morning, and her manager had said, "Yep, I'll be there. It's no problem. I'll see you at 8 o'clock." And he sent her a message the night before saying, "Really sorry, but realistically, I'm not going to be there until about 9:30. If your pass doesn't work, then don't worry. Just ring the duty mobile. Somebody will come down and let you in." And realistically, that tripped Cheryl's anxiety, because she sat there and said, "Well, what if my pass doesn't work? I was expecting this. It's all changing. I don't think I can do this." And I said, "Well, tell him. Be honest with him and say, look, I can't cope with that, because it should have been prepared for, and he should be there. He knows the situation that he's dealing with. He needs to be there." So she messaged him, and he turned around and said, "Do you know what? Okay, yeah, I totally get it. It's fine. Don't come in until 9:30. It's alright, you can do that." Now, granted, most employers won't necessarily be quite as understanding, but you don't know until you ask. Equally, when I got back this morning, Cheryl had said about she was going to take herself to work, her pass was in her car, her headphones were in her car, and she was all geared up, ready to go. And I could tell just by looking at her, and she's going to kill me for saying this, but I could tell just by looking at her that things weren't right, that she was really getting herself worked up. Now, and again, she's going to kill me for saying this, but it's when she has her cup of tea and I suddenly hear an "oh no" from the other room. And all she's done is she's knocked the cup of tea, part of it spilled on the bedsheets. And she nearly went to pieces over that. And it's like, okay, look, it's fine. They're due to go in the wash anyway. Don't worry about it. We'll get it sorted. So it was then that I kind of turned around and said, look, do you need me to drive you? In fact, forget need, do you want me to drive you? And she started making a few excuses, but it's one of those things where you can tell when you look at them that they really do want you to get involved, and I said, do you know what, it's fine, I'll drive you. So it's being honest, being open in that manner, being able to tell other people that you're not doing so great, you need some help, or this is what you need to be able to get to that stage. It's also being honest with yourself, saying, well, alright, do you know what, I'm not in the place I need to be, I need some help. And it's one of the hardest things to do, because none of us like asking for help. But realistically, if we're going to take control, we need to acknowledge when we can't do what we're trying to do.
Pushing back the shadows, support and awareness for mental health.
So right off the back of that, we have one of the final steps. And I can't stress this one enough, because this is very, very crucial to taking control of your life. Be prepared. Now, if you're kind of around my age, or even probably a bit younger, that may strike an image of the Lion King, of Scar as he stood on top of his kind of rocky ledge, and he's singing that lovely kind of "Be prepared" at you. Sorry, I couldn't help that. It's what I think of whenever I say be prepared. But really, you do have to be prepared. And it's not just being prepared for kind of with the Boy Scouts, being prepared for every eventuality. It's making sure that you have the things in place that you need. So back on the example of Cheryl returning to work, she's made sure that she's really prepared. She's got everything sorted the night before, making sure she's got her lunch sorted, what she's going to wear, making sure she's got some of the coping mechanisms in, like a fidget spinner, and even other things like making sure that I'm on the other end of the phone, and I know that she might need me to come and pick her up early. She's made her manager aware of some of the possible outcomes. You know, she might need to go early, or she may need to go off and sit quietly somewhere else for a bit, or something like that. It's all about preparation. Now, those of you who followed our Very Mental Christmas series back in December, you will have heard us say about preparation and really stress that that is a key component with mental health itself. And as I say, I can't stress that enough. If you can have those honest and open conversations with friends, with family, with your employer, with your doctor, your therapist, then you are well on the way to being able to take your life back, take control of your life. Because nobody knows what's going on inside your head. Only you know that. And you know what you need in order to be able to try and take control. You know what you need in order to succeed. And it's all about being able to put those preparations in place. Those coping mechanisms, those safety nets, whatever you need, that's what you need to put into place. Now, one thing I've jotted down on my notes here is about getting a friend to come alongside you, having somebody there who understands. Whenever I go to the doctor or whenever I go to a different appointment, I always take somebody along. Because realistically, I don't know what I'm going to be like when I walk out of that appointment. And I don't. Something could be said that could trigger me, or something could be said that'll just make me think, do you know what? No, I can't do this. And having a friend alongside is something that is so important, because they can then come alongside, they can support you, and they can say, look, okay, this is what we've got to do. This is how we do it. Or even just sitting there saying, okay, it's fine. Just take a moment and breathe. I know it's kind of the cliche saying breathe, but realistically, having somebody alongside who can remind you of some of these things is crucial. And so, as I said, make those preparations. Grab a friend, maybe two, or a family member, and say, look, this is what I want to achieve. This is my step-by-step for what I want to do. And this is where I want to be. And this is what I need you to do. It may not be, it might not be something big like, I need you to check in every hour, see how I'm doing. It may just be, I need you to be there if I need you. You'll be able to respond to a text message or a phone call, something that I know that you're there if I get stuck. And realistically, okay, not everybody's going to be able to do that, but it's something that comes under preparation, having somebody there if you need them. And that's all the preparation is being prepared for that eventuality. At the same time, you also need to be prepared for the possibility of a relapse. As I say, taking control or taking back control is a work in progress. It's by no means a foolproof, fail-safe thing. It's something that you've got to work at over time. It is very much a work in progress. And so you've got to be prepared for the fact that while you're taking your steps forward, there will be steps backwards as well. And that's okay, failing or falling or taking steps back is all right, as long as that does not become your kind of permanent residence. If you find that you stop, that's all right. Don't set up camp. Just get ready to take those steps forward again. And this could be where the friend comes in to encourage you, to give you that motivation and that support to get you moving again. Equally, it's important to recognise that it might not take the shape that you thought it would. With Cheryl, one of the things that she said is that it would be great if she could move back into her role of being like a telephone banking consultant, but alternatively, if she can't, kind of a lateral move into a different sector, different occupation, that sort of thing would be kind of extremely beneficial. Something that she can do that isn't just isn't the same job, but if she needs to move across into a different department so that she can cope, then that's something she's got to look at. So it won't be taking the same form that she kind of thought it would, but it's still taking control back. It's doing something other than kind of letting her mental health rule her life. It's something to think about, isn't it? It might not take the form that you expect, but realistically, as long as you keep stepping forwards, you are taking that control.
You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows.
So we've looked at the different steps. We've looked at making the decision, taking it little by little, recognising that your progress is down to you and whatever you can handle, and that even if you can only take small steps, that's not a bad thing. You need to be honest, you need to be open, and you need to be prepared. Get people on board. Tell them what it is that you want to achieve and let them help you achieve that. And be prepared for relapses. Be prepared that it might not take the form that you want it to. But how do we get started? What do we want to achieve? So in this instance, in this particular section of this episode, think about where you want to be. And I know that's kind of the stereotypical thing that a therapist will ask, where do you want to be in however many weeks, months, years, however long you think it's going to take. But seriously, where do you want to be? For Cheryl, it was, I want to be back in work. I want to be going out, going to work, earning my keep, that sort of thing. For me, it's, I want to be able to go out and do things on my own without having to take everybody along. So where do you want to be? Next, you're looking at how you're going to get there. For Cheryl, it's going back in a phased return, doing a couple of hours a day, building it up slowly until she does her normal working hours. For me, it's different. If I want to start going to places on my own, then maybe start with the little things. Later on today, I'm going to be picking up my prescription, my repeat prescription for some of my medication. Tomorrow it could be I go to the shops. The day after it could be I go to a couple of shops and maybe I go get a coffee somewhere. It's working out how you get to where you want to be. And I'll be honest with you, that part can be difficult. It may be that you need somebody to come alongside you at that point and say, okay, this is where you want to be. Well, have you considered doing this or doing that or doing the other? And they might be able to see the route a little clearer than you can. A good example of that is I was listening to Premier Praise radio station this morning. It's something that I do whenever I'm in the car. This was after the obligatory Moana soundtrack as I was taking the 3-year-old to nursery. And one of the things they always do in the breakfast show at the moment is they have a bit of a what am I riddle. And the riddle this morning was, the bigger I grow, the less you can see, or the bigger I become, the less you can see. What am I? And the correct answer, he said he would accept 2, was either fog or darkness. And realistically, when we're in that mental health struggle, and I've talked about this in episode 17 on the power of perspective, realistically we can't necessarily see our path, we can't see where we're going. But somebody else who stood out of that situation, somebody else may be able to see where we're going a little better than we can. They might be able to see the path that we need to take. They may be able to see what's actually going on. Like I mentioned in that episode 17, I mentioned about how my dad was looking for the pencil or the tools when he was helping me put together the baseboard for my model railway. And me being stood slightly further out of that situation, I could see a lot clearer where it was. Dad, it's behind you, or it's under your foot, or whatever. So it may be that we need somebody to come alongside us and actually say, look, here's where you want to be, here's where you are. Have you considered trying this, trying that, trying the other? It may be that you take up a hobby, something that involves you getting out of the house, getting out of your comfort zone. I was talking to somebody recently on Twitter who said that he wanted to start getting out and meeting people more. And the conversation kind of lent itself a little towards some of the things that he enjoys, like photography. And the suggestion was made, and I can't remember whether it was by me or by him now, but what about looking at a photography club that combines one of your interests with actually getting out and meeting people? And it's something you can do, maybe once a week, maybe once a fortnight, or even once a month, but work your way up to it. So perhaps find a hobby. It doesn't have to be jumping back into work like Cheryl's doing, and it doesn't have to be trying to jump back into society like I'm doing. It can be something different. So visualize where you want to be. Visualize perhaps with a friend how you want to get there. And then make the decision. Take the plunge. And see how it goes. And if all else fails, get in touch with us. We at Pushing Back the Shadows will be more than happy to help you, to see what insight we can provide into how you get to where you want to be. I'm certainly more than happy to respond to you guys if you have any questions, queries, even concerns. My email, as always, is open to you guys. It's alex.davies, that's Davies, at pushingbacktheshadows.com. So alex.davies@pushingbacktheshadows.com, and I'll be happy to respond to any queries, or feel free to hook up with me or Cheryl on Twitter at AlexDaviesPBTS or at CherylPBTS, or even on Facebook, or wherever you guys want to connect with us. We'll be happy to help you through this. But there you go. I hope that's helped you guys. And remember, your progress does not have to be defined by anybody else, no matter how small the steps are. You're making progress, and strive for progress, not perfection. But you are the key to taking control of your life. So that's all from me for today. I'll catch you next week on the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast for episode 23. You guys have a good week, and I'll see you later.
You've been listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. To find out more, head over to pushingbacktheshadows.com and hit subscribe to get all of our latest updates straight to your inbox. Alternatively, connect with us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/AlexDavisPBTS, or you can visit us on Twitter at AlexDavisPBTS. Enable Pushing Back the Shadows to continue supporting people in the mental health community, their friends and their family. By pledging just $1 a month, you could help us to continue supporting people with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar and other mental illnesses. You can also unlock exclusive rewards, behind the scenes, sneak previews of upcoming posts and much, much more. So head over to www.patreon.com/AlexDavisPBTS to find out more.